We want to wish everybody a happy Passover, Chag Kosher V'Sameach. Tonight we are talking about the laws of the night of the Seder. And of course, we're recording for the Neshama, elevation of the Neshama of my father, Shlomo Chaim ben David Hareni Kaparat Mishkavo. And Rab Meir Baal HaNes taught us a very important lesson that it's always to spice up. It's good to have a little bit darash, not only halacha. Rab Meir used to, whenever he used to talk, it was 1/3 halacha, laws, 1/3 parables, and 1/3 agadita, derush. So we know that the first step of the Seder is Kadesh. But I wanted to just say two short Devar Torahs about Magid. The question all the commentators ask is, on Magid, why do we say it in Aramaic? The entire Haggadah is in Hebrew. But Halach ma'anya diachalu avatana be'arad Mitzrayim kol dichvin yetev vayechol. That's the same language as Kaddish, or as the Zohar, or as the Gemara. Why have the whole Haggadah in Hebrew? Like it says Ma'aseh Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, right? The Mishnah's language is what the Haggadah is. It's in Hebrew. So why start off where we hold the Seder plate and we say Halach ma'anya de'achalu? Why that in Aramaic? So there's a beautiful answer Rav OVADIA brings in his Haggadah, I forgot from who, and it brings a direct correlation to what the Zohar says. The answer is that Rabbi Lazar, it says in the Gemara, when he would go visit a sick person, he would go bless them in Aramaic, not in Hebrew. So a student said, Rebbe, isn't there a law that you should only bless people in Aramaic when you're in a minyan, like Kaddish? Because the angels, they only understand Hebrew, right? They don't believe in globalization and UN. So they wouldn't, he said no. Since when somebody is suffering and sick, the Shekhinah of God, God's presence, God's energy comes right on top of the head of the sick person, I'm specifically talking in Aramaic, blessing him to get better in Aramaic, to show you people, all you students, my entourage, that it's don't think God ever abandons anybody. The most broken-hearted and suffering person, if he accepts that with love, God is there. And that's why it has the same law as a minyan on top of the head of the... So it could be, Rav OVADIA brings a beautiful answer. The reason why we start in Aramaic is to show that the Shekhinah of God, it's such a special night. We should think the night of Pesach is no less holy a night than the night of Kippur or the night of Shabbat. It has unlimited potential. Like I'll tell you a beautiful Dvar Torah from Chacham BENSION Abba Shaul's Sidur I just got this year. The Zohar says a beautiful thing about the night of the Seder. It says, it's a very important incumbent upon every Jew. Every man is a king in his house, and every Jew has to go to the Seder. And we have to explain and go into depth about the story with excitement and happiness. And it says, Kol Adam HaMesaper B'Yitzat Mitzrayim. If you say the story with happiness and rejoicement, in the next world, God is going to dance with you and be happy with you. And at that time, God brings all his angels, his millions of angels, Gabriel, Michael, he brings them all to the Seder plate, to the Seder, and he shows them, look, how excited my children are even after thousands of years, and they're still doing the ritual of the Passover Seder and explaining and going into extreme depth about all the different aspects of the Geulah. And it says, not only are you, when you read the Haggadah, you're reading it for your people at your table, but God and all his angels are also listening. And then God, all the angels bless God, and they're so happy with him, and they're so proud of the Jewish nation. So it's heartbreaking to see that sometimes at the Passover Seder people say Lashon Hara, or people are goofing off. Specifically, we start the Seder with Aramaic to show that tonight is the holiness of a synagogue. The Shekhinah, the same way the presence of God is at our Seder table, like the Zohar says very closely, not even God, his whole entourage, all of the angels come. And with this, I just wanted to say another beautiful Dvar Torah I saw from Chacham BENSION Abba Shaul's Haggadah. He says something very nice. He says, we know that there was a story that the rabbis, they got so much into this story of Yetziat Mitzrayim that they went until the morning, right? And their students said, rabbis, it's time to go say the Shema of the morning. So Chacham BENSION brings from one of the great rabbis of Purat Yosef, Rav Adas. It says, what is the novel idea that it has to tell us Rabbi Akiva was at this? Who are the rabbis that were at this meeting that they stayed up the entire night? It was Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon, and they stayed up the entire night. So this is a very beautiful idea I heard. I never heard this in my life. It says, the chidush here is that according to Kabbalah, why is it so important to stay up the whole night if you can? Because it's one of the holiest nights of the year. We know that there's 50 gates of wisdom, right? Solomon, Shlomo, and Moshe Rabbeinu got to all 50 gates. It says in the Zohar, and Rab Tzadok and all the Kabbalists talk about it, Rabbi Akiva also got to the 50th gate. Rabbi Akiva is just head and shoulders, Kabbalistically, he's a very, very important figure. So the same way, the people that know Kabbalah, that know this secret, the reason why they want to stay up the entire night and be so happy and go deeper and deeper and deeper into the story of the Exodus of Yetziat Mitzrayim is because they have the potential that night, the night of the Passover, God, as we saw, all the angels come down, God opens all the gates of heaven. And if you really are sincere and you're like at the 45th level, potentially that night you could get to the 50th level for a short while. You understand what I'm saying? So if there's a lot of energy for growth. And then Rav Adas says the chidush is Rabbi Akiva didn't have that incentive to stay up, right? Because he was already at the 50th gate. He still stayed up the whole night because just for the love of God. So so we'll start with the laws of the Pesach Seder. Obviously, the first stage of the Seder is Kadesh. We say Kiddush. And I just wanted to say a beautiful idea I heard from Rav Avigdor Miller. He says that we know every Friday night it's incumbent upon the husband to thank his wife because she bakes challah, she makes the gondi. Some people don't have gondi on Passover because of the chick powder. But if Rabbi Miller says such an idea on the night of Shabbat, Passover, which is so much more difficult to prepare, it's, I think, so appropriate and gentlemanlike to really at the beginning of the Seder thank the heroes of Judaism, the backbones of every Jewish house. Without them, there is no such thing as Judaism. There is no blessing in the house. The women. The whole idea of this night is really to be thanking God that took us out of, to be grateful that we're not servants anymore. So I think it's so appropriate to put a hats off to the women that work so hard to create a beautiful Passover for us. And even before Kiddush, I think that's a wonderful thing. We should never take each other for granted. You know, this is the first year I lost my father, and it's always so important to tell our loved ones that we're grateful to them and we love them and we cherish them. And what better time when everybody's at the house and we could thank our wives and sisters and mothers for all the hard effort they do. Now, Kadesh, the first law I wanted to talk about is that being a Baal Tshuva myself, I was not religious my entire life. Some people, they make a mistake that this cup is exactly 3 ounces, if you want to look at it. On the night of the Seder, women have to do everything the men have to do. So there's absolutely no difference. The same way the men have to eat matzah and have the 4 cups. and do all the 15 steps of the Seder, the women also have to do. And also the children. Sometimes people have this custom that they give these tiny cups that's only 1 ounce. So for Kadesh, we have to use a cup. Rav OVADIA holds that 3 ounces is a revi'it. And also, we have to be very, very aware that the best thing to have is red wine, according to the Sfardim. Because red wine reminds us of the miracle of that the Nile turned into blood. But, as me, alcohol is not so good for me for many different reasons. If alcohol is too difficult, you can mix it half and half with grape juice. And when I was with Rav Chaim Kanievsky, of course, if somebody cannot have any alcohol at all, Rav Chaim told me, and all the poskim, majority of poskim, hold that grape juice is also good enough for the 4 cups and saying kiddush. But really, really, we should try to bend over backwards and have a little bit alcohol in it, half and half. If it's only a 3-ounce cup, it's not going to really bother you, hopefully, that much. Now, the second most important law that we have to realize is that there's 4 parts of the Seder that we have to lean. Now, this is a beautiful chair. You can't see it, but this chair has a handle. Now, I was reviewing Chacham BENSION Abba Shaul's Halachot. He says a beautiful thing. I always had this question, how much you need to lean? Do you only need to lean like an inch? Or do you have to actually... So he says you should lean so much that you're at a 45-degree angle, right? So leaning... Let me go into this because sometimes people complain, the people that are Baal Tshuva are not so sophisticated. There is a commandment from the rabbinic that we must, anything we eat on the night of Passover, that's part of the mitzvah, like matzah, the sandwich korech, that we put the haler into the lettuce, and also the afikomen. So these 4 different parts of the Seder, the 4 cups, the afikomen, the motzi matzah, and the korech, we have to lean. Now, why do we have to lean, like I'm leaning right now? Because on the night of Passover, we are royalty. And royalty, the princes, if you ever gone to a museum, they used to have a custom, whenever they used to eat like on these couches. And they used to actually, royal people used to actually lean. So to show that this night, we're not servants anymore. We are royalty, we lean. Leaning also applies to women and men. There's no difference. And Chacham BENSION Abba Shaul says a very beautiful thing, that the leaning should be at a 45-degree angle. Obviously, you should not lean on your own knees. And this takes me to really, I should have said this first. Since it's the most important night of every father and mother to teach their child why they're Jewish and why he can't have pizza and bagels and challah for an entire week. Because tradition alone, most Iranian Jews in America are traditional. I hate to burst your bubble, it's not going to last. If there's no backbone, tradition alone is not, God forbid, like the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, if we just want to come up traditional and not be totally faithful to halacha, then we're going to end up with that 5th child. We know there's 4 sons, but the Rebbe said there's really a 5th child, a child that doesn't even come to the Seder, right? Because he's so assimilated. So we have to know that the night of Passover, like I just told you in the beginning, is such a special night. The 50 gates are open, all the angels and God comes and visits us. And it's also a night where we have to talk face-to-face conversation with our children. Why are you Jewish? So, it's highly recommended that the eve of Passover, every mother and father, the big boys and girls and the small big boys, we're the big boys, the adults, which are the big boys and girls, everybody should take a 1 hour, 2 hour nap. So when you do come to the Seder, you're not tired. Parenthetically, we know that really the firstborn should fast on the eve of Passover. You know that. But nowadays, the custom is they all go to a party where they finish a part of the Talmud. Why is that? Why change? Because the Chachamim saw people are not as strong as they used to be. The firstborn, if they come into the Seder and they're drained and they're going to try to rush it. And then if tonight we're not able to convey to our children that they should be so proud to be Jewish, and why they're Jewish, because they asked one time Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner, what's the most important message every mother and father should give to their children? The answer is Ashreinu ma tov chelkeinu u'ma na'im goraleinu. The most important lesson you could give to the next generation, your children and grandchildren, is that it's the greatest, we're the luckiest people in the world. It's like we won the lottery, but even 1 trillion times greater than that, because we are the chosen nation. We are the nation that brought God and His ethics and His law to the world. So if you are tired, this is no good. That's the reason why the Chachamim canceled the Ta'anit. They said it's better to open it so you have the energy. So even before Kadesh, preparation is everything. And when Chacham BENSION Abashol says you should go on a 45-degree angle, the best thing is before Passover tonight, go and get some very comfortable pillows, plan out your Seder. So when you come to the Seder, you don't complain, because that defeats the purpose. If when you want to lean, you hearing, Natan? If when you lean, it's something awkward, then we've kind of defeated the purpose. So it's very recommended that you should lean. Get a very good chair. It's a good investment. Whatever you can get a pillow, you should prepare, and maybe a day before or 4 or 5 hours before the Seder, pick your spot and see how you could set it up the most comfortable way, where you have enough pillows and this idea of heseba should be something that makes it more pleasurable and makes you feel more like royalty, not some awkward thing. Now, another thing I saw very beautifully, Kaf HaChaim brings down, is that it's better not to use, if possible, disposable. It's better to use like silver. If you could afford silver, give all your guests a 3-ounce or 4-ounce silver cup. Why? Because we want to show that God promised Abraham, when we leave this Egypt, we're going to go out wealthy, right? And still to this day, we want to say God's promise is true, right? That's why it's a halacha, actually, that your best silverware, that is, if it's kosher for Passover, lay it out on the Seder table, right? Because you want to show that God's promise is really true still to this day, that the Jews are wealthy. Now, if men forget to do the heseba, I got bad news for you. If you don't want to get drunk the night of the Seder, especially have a big cup, you're going to have to redo it. So let's say you drank the first cup of Kadesh like this. You didn't do the heseba. You're going to have to go back and drink another cup to make up for that. So Rav OVADIA brings, it's a very, very beautiful mitzvah that somebody should be the mashkiach that night and be the tzaddik of the table and remind people that, hey, at this point of the Seder, you need to do what? Heseba, lean. Because since people are not accustomed to the leaning, right, they're going to forget it. Let's move along. The bottle of wine also, there's a halacha that there's always should be mezigah. There should be 3 drops of water, because that shows that water is mercy according to Kabbalah. So what you can do is, all the bottles of wine and grape juice that you use the night of Seder, in each, Rabbi Balanes, my brother-in-law's uncle, the chief rabbi of Shiraz, taught me this. You could just add 3 drops to the bottle, right? That way, every cup that you pour will have the mezigah, will have the 3 drops of water in it. Now, I wanted to go to the more important parts of the Seder. We're going to skip Urchatz. Obviously, we don't make a bracha. Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas. Yachatz, we break the matzah. But I wanted to get to Magid. As I said in the beginning of this shir, Magid is the most awesome part of the night, that before every father and mother starts this point, you should meditate and have concentration that right now you're doing one of the 613 commandments of the Torah. Because God demands us and commands us that on the night of Passover, we have to explain to our children why we came out of Egypt, right? And mitzvot serichot kavana, that's another shir. I was listening to Rabbi Reisman, and it's very important that this that we celebrate the Seder is not just a tradition. This is something very important to point out. Like, some people think it's only a tradition not to eat chametz. No, your soul gets cut off from its source of life, right? If we eat chametz bread on Passover. By the same token, the night of Passover that we eat matzah, it's better to say the L'Shem Yichud, right? You should say, and we're going to go very deeply into the laws of matzah, but something else that I've seen, witnessed, is a big mistake. If you just read the Haggadah in Hebrew, and most people in the United States don't understand Hebrew, then people don't have an attention span anymore, right? That's why all commercials nowadays are around 15 or 20 seconds. The idea here is everybody should be engaged and happy. That's when God comes and visits your Seder table with all his angels. But if you're just doing it as a dry, stale mitzvah with no enthusiasm and no love and joy, then, God forbid, it's not such a good thing. So what I'm trying to say here is we should try to say the Haggadah in a language that everybody understands, the women and the children, so people do not what? Space out. And at this point, it's very important to understand something else, which is that there's no reason to rush. Some people, I've seen it time and time again, they get frustrated because the kids in Jewish school, each one of them has their own Haggadah. Like I said, there is no future without children being excited about their religion and about their Judaism. So please, if you don't have children or your children are grown up, it is unwise and wrong to try to rush the Seder. The more deeper we get into it, we could tap into the 50 gates of wisdom, which it's unbelievable how Rabbi Akiva was able to get to the level of Moshe and Shlomo. But the most important thing of this night is to be happy. A lot of people, it's so difficult to make everything kosher for Passover. Like I said in the beginning, when they come to the Seder table, there's no energy, enthusiasm, right? Because they've worked so hard. That's wrong. Even though I'm not a fan of people going away for Pesach to these vacations, but that is one positive benefit thing of it, that the people are not drained and they do have the energy to really be excited about the whole Haggadah. And I just hate to tell you, if somebody in the corner, one old man, the grandpa, reads the whole Haggadah in Hebrew and nobody understands it and explains it, like I've seen before I became religious, we've kind of lost the whole ball game. We've missed the whole point. We've missed the whole enchilada. So the more, and another good custom I found to be beneficial is give everybody to read a page of it. That way people, everybody's engaged and everybody can be spaced in. Okay, now we're going to go to Motzi Matzah. And I'm sorry, it's important to understand about Motzi Matzah that why do we eat matzah? Matzah is a humble food, right? Bread has ego and is puffed up. So like my Rebbe, Harav Eliezer ben David says, never hesitate to have a lot of matzah the night of Passover. It's the vitamin of emunah. The Zohar calls it lachma de emnuta. Why? Because when we eat matzah, it symbolizes that the Jews were willing to follow blindly Moses into a desert, right? Can you imagine, would you do that? Leave all your possessions, leave your house, right? And go blindly into the desert. So the symbol that the Jews had an outstanding faith that Moses was going to take them to the promised land, and Moses was the messenger of God, is the matzah. That's why they rushed, right? And they followed Moshe blindly into the desert. The Haftarah says very beautifully, eloquently, God says, I'll never forget this great chesed ne'urayich, kindness that you did to me, that even though most people wouldn't blindly follow anybody anywhere, because everybody has the comfort of their home, but the Jews did that. So, and also matzah, it shows us to be humble. The biggest problem we have in our community today is people are addicted to luxury. They want $100,000 weddings. They want to show off. Matzah is the bread of the poor person, right? It has nothing in it, the Maharal says. Only water and flour. No oil, no salt, nothing. And that shows us in life we have to be simple. In life we should take away the ego. And when we meditate and eat the matzah, it's always more important what goes on in our soul and our mind and heart, that we should really be true human beings. And I'll tell you a beautiful story I heard today from Rabbi Jacobson. He says one time the Vizhnitzer Rebbe, he visited a certain city, and the wealthiest person in that city was a real hotshot. He was very, very confident and very proud of himself. And he told the Rebbe when he came to town, he said, you know, the custom is all the great rabbis and dignitaries stay in my house. And I am number one in kosher, and all my standards are A+. Guess what? The Rebbe didn't stay at the guy's house. He went and stayed at somebody else that wasn't as religious and famous. So the next day, the guy saw the Rebbe in shul. He said, Rebbe, why? How could you? A chutzpah, you don't stay with me? I'm much more religious and knowledgeable than that other guy. The Rebbe told him such a beautiful thing. He says, I learned it from God. It says in the end of Parshe Acharei Mot, Ani Hashem Elokechem. So it says that even when the Jews are impure, are tameh, are not so righteous and pious and keeping the Torah perfectly, God's Shekhinah is still with them. But on the other hand, it says somebody that has haughtiness, somebody that has ego, that thinks he's God, that he has all the power, and all the blessings that he has in his life is because me, myself, and I, where is credit due to me? God says me and him cannot live in one world. So he said, it's better for me to be with that person that's humble, because he was trying to tell him indirectly that, you know, to be such a self-centered person and think you're the greatest gift to mankind is much worse and repulsive than somebody that is not so religious. And, you know, the entire Pesach, for example, he doesn't eat shmura matzah. So let's not miss the point. Now, how much matzah do you need to get? Natan, right by my chair over there, I have a shmura matzah box. Can you get it for me? I want to show it. So we know last week, like Dov Bear was here and other people, we gave a whole class about shmura matzah. At the night of Passover, it's very, very important that we use matzah that's handmade. Why? I'm going to put the link in the class under. You guys could look at that class if you missed it. Because this matzah is made from a special wheat that was guarded. Nowadays, all the shmur is guarded from the time that they already harvest it, that no water comes in contact. And also when it's baked with the intention that people should eat it the night of Passover. It's matzah's mitzvah. So, motzi matzah is really, it's best to have each person, now don't shoot me here, but the right thing is this whole matzah, every person at the Seder, at least the adults, should have at least the whole entire matzah. Half a matzah for the mitzvah of motzi matzah, like for the mitzvah of Yom Tov, of eating a bread on Yom Tov, and the other for the special kavanah. Again, before we say motzi matzah, we should announce. Everybody should meditate and have intention. The reason they're eating this is not because of tradition. It's because on such a night God took us out of Egypt and we rushed out, and we want to remember that God has divine providence and He took us out of Egypt and He's the supervisor of the world. So the first night, which is from the Torah law, for sure it's worthwhile, because it is such a beautiful vitamin, to go ahead and do what? Each person at this point should eat an entire matzah. So if you can't do such a thing, in such a scenario, you should at least have 2/3, because some say 1/3 is a kazayit. The idea is to have a equivalent to 28 grams. Now, some people, for whatever reason, they can't get a hold of these round matzahs. Last week we explained Rav OVADIA Yosef holds, like Rav Chaim Oizer and the Chazon Ish and Rav Pesach Frank, they hold that even machine shmura is okay for the night of Passover, which is less expensive or whatever. If you don't, for whatever reason, want to get a hold of the handmade one, you could also use that. That is a little bit different. That you have to eat more of. It's better to have 1.25. The second night, for people that for some reason or another they get stomach aches, or it's very hard for them to digest the matzah, you could be more lenient. Instead of having entire matzah and motzi matzah, you could have 2/3 or a half. But for sure, the first night it's worth it to push yourself. If you're eating machine shmura, have 1.25. And if you're having, again, some people, they have stomach problems. The bare minimum everybody must eat the night of Passover is at least 1/3 of the round shmura. That's the bare minimum, or half of the machine shmura. Now let's go ahead and delve deeper into this. Since this is one of the 613 commandments of the Torah to eat matzah the night of Passover, and eating it, if you read Kabbalah, it creates such important energy in the worlds, and it's opening up the 50 gates of wisdom, and all the angels are coming, and it's a very holy night. So therefore, when you have to try to eat it within 4 minutes. Now this takes me off a little bit on a tangent, but a lot of people don't know this, which I was shocked, because one of my children didn't know it. I mean, they're not that old. But there is idea in Halacha that if you want to eat something like a turtle, which means you take the matzah, okay, you're going to eat the entire matzah, but it's going to take you half an hour to eat that whole round matzah. You didn't do the mitzvah. It has to, in Halacha, eating is not something that's done in slow motion. It's a law that's called bichtei achilat pras. Eating in halachic terms, in biblical terms, in Torah terms, is, so there's a dispute how quick you need to eat it. Some say 4 minutes, some say 7.5. Again, the first night, since it's Torah law, you should try to eat your whole matzah, which is a little bit of a challenge, within 4 minutes, if not 7.5 minutes. But definitely, you should not be speaking. When you're eating the matzah, it's a time of meditation. It's a time of, because we have to imagine that our soul was in Egypt. That's why whenever you have ice cream or tea or soup, you don't say a bracha afterward. Did you know that? You don't say baracha achrona. Even though if you have a whole donut or cookies or cereal afterwards, you have to say ala michya. But if you have tea, you don't say borei nefashot after. Why? Because the halacha is normal, since it's so hot or so cold, you usually don't eat it within the 4 minute frame. You understand? So eating under halacha is to be able to say bracha achrona, and this applies for bread, even Shabbat time. If Shabbat, it took you to eat your piece of challah 10 minutes, it's a little bit problematic. So therefore, when people dish out the matzah to everybody at the Seder table, people should not be schmoozing with one another. They should be focusing, eating, closing their eyes even, and you should not dip it, the matzah, in any. This is also a mistake I've seen people make. People dip it in the halech, right? The idea is this needs to be a pure, authentic mitzvah. The taste of matzah should not be alterated. It should be unadulterated, right? So we should have, so let's review. We should have, if you possible, you should have an entire round matzah. That's the joke they say. Lechem oni. It's not only the bread of a poor man. It's so expensive, these stuff. And if you have a big family, you become poor because you have to buy so much of it. But it's always, we should never complain. Like I said, the whole idea is that we're so lucky. We're the most luckiest people in the world that we have the true religion of Judaism, which makes us angelic and takes us on a higher level. So we should not dip it in anything. We shouldn't be talking while we're eating it because we're trying to get to that goal, if possibly eating it within 4 minutes. Now, let's get to the last part of this class, and we're going to finish with this, and that is maror. Maror, again, we should also try to have a leaf or two, because you have to have a kazayit of it. I just want to say parenthetically, a lot of people don't know this. The night of Passover, the only thing that you have to eat from Torah law is matzah. Because now that we don't have the korban Pesach, ba'avonotenu harabim, right? Really, the night of Passover, our dessert is a shawarma, which is the korban Pesach. So since we don't have the korban Pesach, maror is only rabbinic also. The only thing that we eat the night of Passover from Torah law is the matzah. That's why we should be so meticulous and do it properly. Not that the Rabbanan is not important, but the 4 cups is rabbinic. The maror is rabbinic.
Korban Pesach is also rabbinic?
There is no korban Pesach. I spent hours upon hours learning this, actually. It's forbidden on Passover to say this is for Le Pesach, because then you're making it holy and you could only eat it in the temple. It's brought down in the poskim. I remember spending many hours studying this sugya. It's some poskim only becomes asur, you have to throw it away. You should say this is for the night of the Seder. You know that shank bone that they make? Unfortunately, we do not have the holy temple, right? The Jerusalem is not rebuilt. So how can you bring the Passover offering, right? That bone that we put on the Seder plate, we say Zecher lekorban Pesach. Pesach can only be truly carried out when all the Jews come to Jerusalem. So the final thing that we need to be careful about the maror is that maror, I did some research on this, and I'm going to put the link in the YouTube and the Facebook under, so people should know. Romaine lettuce, which is our custom for thousands upon thousands of years to use it, not horseradish, Baruch Hashem. According to the Shulchan Aruch, we do use romaine lettuce, and it's been our custom for thousands of years, right? Maror. It's very important, incumbent upon the women to clean it appropriately. Why is this? Because romaine lettuce can potentially be infested with 3 different types of bugs: aphids, thrips, and small flies. And my personal custom has been the last 15 years is it's worth it to go buy this special lettuce that they used to grow it. Unfortunately, those evil people, they gave back Gush Katif, but there was, in Israel for many years, they've been growing romaine lettuce in sand. When they grow it in special greenhouses, it does not have any flies or bugs, right? In LA also they're growing it, in Oxnard. So you can just buy that lettuce. It is usually not infested, and if it is infested, it's going to be a large bug that if you just wash it off, it's visible. These aphids and thrips, and the flies are more visible, but the fruit flies, but they're very small, and it's very hard to catch them. So therefore, you should know, they may have a lot of protein bugs, but it's 5 times worse than eating pork if you eat bugs. So therefore, it's very important to inspect them appropriately. I do not recommend, just because of convenience, I just say buy the ones that's grown in Oxnard, California, or comes from Israel, that's grown in sand, which doesn't have these infestations. But the appropriate thing is to actually wash them in a type of soapy liquid. I'm not an expert in it, and then to look at it under light. And when you see something that's darker than the leaf, that could be a bug, right? Because the leaf is translucent. The bug is much thicker. So if you hold it up, and then you also have to completely open the leaf. There's different methods of checking, and we'll put the link downstairs on the bottom of the video. But what I'm trying to say is another practical thing for the people that are a little bit worried to have bugs is the white part of the romaine lettuce is much, much easier to make sure it doesn't have any infestation. So that's what a lot of people do, is that they don't use the green part. They have like 3-4 stalks of the white part, and that is crystal clear to see whether there's bugs or not. We want to wish everybody the best Pesach ever in their life, and ultimately we should realize every Jew has to imagine and meditate that he came out of Egypt, and each one of us is in our personal Egypt. Whenever we're addicted to a bad habit or a sinful action, and the Satan says you can never get better, you could never get married, that's your personal Egypt. We have to know a Jew is limitless because we have a soul. Just like God is everywhere and can do anything, our soul is in the image of God. It's limitless. Is there any limit to how many knowledge you could have? No. Is there a limit to how holy you can be? No. Is there any limit to how many mitzvahs you can do? No. Is there a limit to how much Ruach HaKodesh you can get? No. So the night of Passover, true freedom is only through the study of Torah. That's why we start counting to the Omer. And may Hashem merit us that each one of us comes out of our workaholism, our bad habits, our addiction to certain mistaken lifestyles and sins, and we totally become free and clinging to Hashem. שנאמר ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כולכם היום ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ואמן.
חזק וברוך.